The 1-2 Football Podcast. The voices of tomorrow, here today.
Hey guys, welcome back to the 1-2 Football Podcast. I'm Nathan, and today we are recapping this summer's Premier League transfer window. As usual, I'm here with Ollie and Kieran. How are you guys?
I'm good. Interesting day for us anyway. Obviously, when it comes out, the transfer window would have been closed for like 2 days. But for us, it's deadline day, hence why we're doing the transfer special. And for me personally, Man United, we got 3 points when we probably shouldn't have. So, it's been a good couple of days for me.
Yeah, 3 points. Beat the mighty Watford, top of the league. Arsenal at the bottom, you'll have to see it. Not much more I can add.
I mean, to be honest, it's a deadline day today, and obviously you'll know what has happened on deadline day, but I don't think any of our teams are going to particularly be doing that much. Liverpool need to do something, but they're not. Man United probably need to get someone in a certain position in holding midfield. They're not going to do that. And Tottenham aren't doing anything, are they? Oh, Emerson's
probably going to get announced today, but in terms of anyone else, probably maybe people being moved out of the club. Other than that, probably going to be a quiet one.
Yeah, so in this episode, we're going to go through the Premier League transfer window. As said, it's going to be who our favourite transfer, who the best transfers are, who the most risky transfer is, who's had the best window, and some signings that have perhaps gone a little under the radar in comparison to some of the bigger ones. So there's no better place to start with the best of the best. Who are the top three signings? We're going to start with third place. We'll go around, give our third place, second place, first place. And Kieran, who's in third place for you?
Oh, this was hard. There's been a lot of signings in this window, a lot of good ones, some bad ones, some risky ones, which we'll come on to. In third
some
place,
under the radar ones as well.
Under the radar as well, yeah. In third place though, in terms of what I think is probably the third best transfer for a Premier League team, I've gone for Raphael Varane. Probably could have been number 2 or number 1. It's more about what the relativeness to the club, I think. And defensively, Manchester United, back when it was Lindelof and Maguire, it was all right. Like, you would get Champions League football likely with those two. But when you add someone with the pedigree of Raphael Varane, multi-time Champions League winner, World Cup winner, I mean, his accomplishments speak for himself. And even after that, his performance against Wolves as well, he had to do a lot of defending. And that's obviously what he's been brought into the club for. I mean, the midfield of United is another question, but he's definitely going to strengthen up that defensive. And, when against every single team, they managed to push through Man United's midfield like it's bubbles. So Varane, very good signing for me, third place. So I've just had to bring you down a peg or two there, Ollie, because I knew you were too happy that I picked Varane. So
Varane was on my list, and I'm glad somebody else said him because he didn't make it into my top 3. I really wanted to, and I could have put other players there, but he just didn't make it for me. But he's a quality player who just makes that defence look 10 times better, not only on paper but in real life. And I think that was proven in his debut for Wolves. It wasn't the most amazing debut in the world, but he showed who he is and what he brings to this team, which is that sort of assurance at the back, because Traore was destroying us, and yet every single time they broke us down, there was always a player there. Most of the time was Varane as well, was putting a leg in to block it. So if he can do that for the rest of the season, that would be absolutely marvellous. So yeah, but I'll go in with my third place. It is another centre-back. And I thought actually prior to recording this, someone was going to ruin it. But, we'll go with it anyway. It's Kabak. Only just happened. And I've got him in there. It could be a shock. Kieran's face shows it that was a shock one. But for me, a player that was at Liverpool last season, I think 13 league appearances, made them get top 4, Champions League football, in a defence that was in turmoil with injuries, who came in, didn't do anything overly special, but he looked comfortable in a Liverpool team. And that isn't easy for any player to do. Now, if it wasn't for signing, obviously I'll completely Conte, nearly forgot his name then. He probably would. They probably would have done their option to buy on Kabak. So I mean, it shows you that Norwich have got a very, very top class player here. However, for me, it's more of a risk for the player than it is for the club. I think the club have got an amazing defender here. For someone that was at Liverpool last season, and Liverpool really probably did consider signing permanently, for Norwich to get them is an incredible signing for that club. For me, Kabak's obviously Schalke was relegated. and now he could go to Norwich. One relegation on your CV looks bad. If he gets relegated again, as a centre-back as well, it's not great look for the player. But for the club...
The Turkish Aaron Ramsdale.
What's that?
He'll become the Turkish Aaron Ramsdale.
Yeah, it's just not going to look pretty, is it? But for the club, Norwich, they've got an amazing signing on their hands. I know it's a loan with an option to buy. So maybe, if they get relegated, also no thanks and leave. But, I mean, to get someone that Liverpool were really considering, and someone that actually did pretty well in Liverpool's defence last season for the few games he played, I think it's a quality signing for Norwich. And, we're talking about not only the player, but the impact these players have on the team. That could be, a lifeline for Norwich this season. So, yeah, he had to get into my top 3.
Yeah, I think that's a good signing for Norwich. I think Norwich's business has been generally pretty good this year. Rashika, Gilmore, especially the use of the loan market, Williams, Gilmore, and Kabak now. I mean, in terms of bad starts, Norwich have had probably the hardest start to a Premier League season you probably could have asked for, coming up with the exception of maybe Chelsea instead of Leicester. But, Man City, Liverpool. So, of course, they weren't going to win any of their first 3 games. But they looked all right against Leicester. And with Kabak coming in, strengthening that back line, they could be onto something. The only thing I would say is Kabak was a bit slow. And can't remember who plays centre-back for Norwich regularly. It might be Grant Hanley.
Gibson or Hanley.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Gibson, because just Kabak lacked a little bit of pace in it, and it kind of showed at first. But him and Phillips were a big reason why we got third. And I think Fabinho, obviously, coming back in helped that out, especially because that was that experienced head. So if you get someone experienced next to Kabak, I think it's a good sign. Someone that I was very, very surprised wasn't picked up sooner for a very cheap price. I think it was available for like 6 million, 4 million, maybe even 3, because Schalke just wanted to get rid of the wages. So I was very surprised that a lot of the mid-table teams weren't in for him. I mean, we'll go on to mine. I mean, we are talking about Norwich. My third best signing for me is a player that left Norwich to go to Aston Villa, Emi Buendia, who joined Aston Villa for I can't remember how much, but he joined Aston Villa quite early on in the window, and everyone was kind of like, why is he left, or why have Norwich done that? But the truth is, Buendia was putting up numbers in the Championship that were just absolutely unreal. In the Premier League, when Norwich were absolutely awful, he was one of the most creative players in the league, when Norwich were very clearly the worst team in the league. And I think you can't replace someone like Grealish in the same way Spurs wouldn't be able to replace Kane, the same way Liverpool probably wouldn't have been able to replace Suarez. You can't replace someone that important to your team. But Marco Buendia is a great option too. I mean, he's going to help Villa so much in terms of creating chances, helping get others into play. And for me, he's someone that, again, top 6 clubs should have been looking at. You're looking at teams like Liverpool. I would love Liverpool to get him. I mean, exactly. Arsenal should have been all over it, in my opinion, instead of Odegaard. And just like, he's someone that is going to make that team better. And it might take a bit to settle in. Sometimes it does for creative players. They got to figure out how their teammates work, especially considering Aston Villa have brought in a whole load of creative talent this year. But when it starts working, I think we're going to see just how good he is. And it's an exciting signing and an exciting window for Aston Villa as a whole.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great signing. Like you said, other teams should have been onto him. But, I mean, he's not had the most amazing start. I mean, Kieran was annoyed, I think, from the first couple of starts because he's obviously in his fantasy team. But he got a goal.
Not last weekend.
Yeah, he got a goal on the weekend. Finally, got that all-important goal that hopefully kickstart his season. But, I mean, to come in and, like you said, replace someone like Grealish, it's not going to be easy. It's never easy for any player to do that transition to a new club. But to be that man now that has to be replacing Grealish, everyone knew what Grealish meant to that club. So it was never going to be easy to him. But I think it's only a great signing. That I don't think it's going to go bad at all. I'd be shocked if it did. And to be fair, I don't think he'll be at Aston Villa for that many seasons. You said about the big 6, and I think he's only going to do a lot better for his reputation. And I'm sure 3 seasons time maybe he'll be getting a transfer to a bigger club.
I think he could be a big part of Villa establishing himself in the big 6. Now, obviously, we know that's their intentions. A lot of money behind the club. And I mean, it's an exciting time for some of these Prem teams. I mean, we'll probably touch on it when we talk about other things, but this transfer window has proven that these big teams, these not smaller teams, but these West Ham's, Aston Villas, they can attract big players, and that's quite fun and exciting for us who get to watch the Premier League.
For sure. But while we're on the topic of Aston Villa, if we move on to our second place signings, this is a striker. And it's Danny Ings. I mean, the man just scores goals, and he has done already. And he scored some brilliant goals already. The cut price of what I think was around 25 million from Southampton as well has given you probably I would put him in top 3 natural finishers alongside probably Greenwood and Kane for me. I think he's that good. And at that price as well, he's cheap as chips. And like you say, it's always going to be difficult to replace Grealish. But Danny Ings can get you goals from ridiculous places. So you don't even necessarily need someone to create those chances for you. And obviously Watkins is quite versatile, as we've seen over the years. He can play as a wide forward if he needs to. He can play behind if he needs to. He can play as part of a 2. And I think once Watkins kind of comes up back to fitness and the 2 possibly start together, it could be a really good kind of duo and partnership that they develop in the Midlands. I just thought that it was very out of nowhere as well, the Ings signing. I didn't even see interested. It was just, it's happened. And it still looks weird, him in a Villa shirt, but I mean, what a signing it was. And if you're going to use 100 million that you're going to get, why not spend a quarter of it on one of the best finishers in the league?
Yeah. Sorry, you go.
It's all right, Nathan, you can go.
Oh, thank you. I love Danny Ings. As a Liverpool fan, I thought, he was such a promising player for us. Unfortunately, injuries kind of killed him off during his time here, but I thought he'd have been perfect for us and for our system under Klopp. But unfortunately, injuries got the better of him. But in a system that is less press heavy, then you're getting, in my opinion, probably one of the better strikers in the Premier League, and someone that is probably, underrated, maybe not so much anymore, but definitely someone that used to go under the radar as a striker. And again, it's just an exciting time for Villa. That they're probably a few players off being a team that realistically could compete higher up than just for the Conference League places.
Yeah, no, I might as well say it. He's my second place as well. So, we're keeping the treble. We always say the same players. But, yeah, no, you just can't overlook it, to be honest with you. I think I'd be shocked, to be honest, if Nathan... I'm shocked that if you haven't this season, you don't have him in your top 3, because he is just an amazing capture for Aston Villa. And it's not often that a team loses a big player, gets a big, amount of money in and spend it so wisely. And I think Aston Villa have done amazing in this transfer window with the money that they've done. You can't replace Grealish, so you look elsewhere. And, we talked about the other day about West Ham's lack of depth up front. And I didn't really realise it until looking a bit yesterday about the lack of depth that Aston Villa probably had up front until they signed Danny Ings. Obviously, you had Watkins, but, he's not necessarily the out-and-out striker. You have Bertrand Traore up there, but he's not necessarily, going to get you those goals. So they were crying out for someone, to be honest, which I didn't even realise. It wasn't obvious that they needed a striker, but to be fair, they probably did. And what a striker they've got in Danny Ings, and he's already, proven to be worth the outlay with the amount of goals he's already getting. Yeah, okay, a penalty here and there, but take the goals when you can get them, and it's just a great signing. I can't really say anything more because Kieran, just did a massive bit of praise for him. But yeah, an amazing signing for him. And talking about Buendia, that link up could be exceptional this season.
Yeah, he's not in my top 3. I'll be honest. I felt obviously the Buendia one was probably more integral to Aston Villa than the Ings one, just in terms of creativity, and Watkins being there. Watkins is a goal scorer now. 2 seasons now he's got over 15, I think, or it was close to that last season, and obviously smashed it for Brentford in the Championship. But for me, second place again, it's someone we've already talked about, Rafael Varane to Man United. I wasn't sure which Man United sign I was going to put in, him or Sanchez, because they're both very good signings. But I decided Varane in terms of what United needed more, as we were saying, needed a defender, and they'll be hoping that he can have a similar effect to Van Dijk and Diaz, and and having someone like Maguire alongside you, that's the good defender to have. It's better than Stones, and it's better than what was Lovren or Matip at the time at Liverpool when those 2 other players arrived. So it could be a really interesting time. And the only worry is, we say it all the time, the defensive midfielder might force might kind of expose that back 4 a little bit, not because of lack of quality, just because of bit openness and fullbacks pushing forward and stuff. So, but United can't argue with someone of the pedigree of Rafael Varane. And yes, a great sign.
You can't argue, I think, with the price tag either. I know he's going into the final 12 months, and you saw in this window that Real Madrid were doing £170 million for a player.
Yeah, they almost went to 100 mil.
I think it was £36 million for a World Cup winner, a Champions League winner, someone that's been there, done it all for £36 million. That is not only one of the best, or could be, like you said, second best of the window. It's probably one of the best for money in this transfer window. So yeah, I didn't add him. I really wanted to. It was a hard battle with my own mind to not put him there. But yeah, great player, and I'm looking very forward to seeing that partnership with Maguire.
I got a feeling we've all got the first players to say one. I got a feeling. But Kieran, if you were to Take
But
it away.
we've all got the same number one.
If it is, just raise your hand as soon as he says it.
Lukaku. hey, let's be honest, right? I'll keep mine brief, so I'll give you something to do. But this is how I see it. Without a striker, Chelsea won the Champions League, and I think they'd finish top 4 again. With a world-class striker, it's their league to lose. I'll let you.
I mean, I was literally just going to say the same thing. I put him in there. There was a lot of good signings in this transfer window, but I put him in there because I thought if any player is going to have the impact, and I don't think there's any bigger impact than winning the title. Now, that man is going to bring that title to Stamford Bridge. It's as simple as that. That's why he's number one.
I mean, you see it with title-winning teams. I mean, there's always often with teams that are coming towards that, there's players they need. There's just a few players, Liverpool, Van Dijk and Alisson. Once they were bought, people like, Liverpool going for it. I mean, they had that 98-point season when they didn't win it. When Man City bought in Diaz, I mean, maybe not everyone was seeing it straight away, but as soon as everyone realised, right, okay, City are very serious this year, they're going to win the league this year. And I think Lukaku was that man for Chelsea. I think watching that, and then that point against Liverpool so important. Now, I mean, he had quite a quiet game, I believe, but he just, I mean, it's that hole in the team that you need to fill, and he's that man. Timo Werner, as good as he is as a creative player, he's not an out-and-out striker in terms of his goal output. And, you know, who else would they have to go there? So Lukaku, I mean, it's just a real bit of business, and regardless of the fee, he's just probably is the best striker in the world, arguably, you know, in terms of maybe Haaland and Mbappe are up there with him, but he's definitely top 3. And I forgot about Lewandowski and Gale, actually. He's definitely top 5.
I was about to say, Lewandowski's got to be probably, in my mind, the best. But, yeah, we all get where you're coming from.
He's definitely top 5. And he's someone, in terms of in England, he probably is the best striker in England, outside of Harry Kane, of course. But and it could have been a different window.
Kieran was fuming there. He was like, Kane.
I kept remembering players as I was speaking.
It's a great side. I mean, look, it's fair. A full house here to say Lukaku, so I mean that speaks for itself, to be honest. But yeah, it's quite scary. And to be honest, for a player that played for Manchester United and he was so underwhelming at times, you know, he's still got like probably 20 goals a season, which is a great return. But for me, you know, at Man United, he didn't live up to the expectation, and I was really looking forward to seeing him against Liverpool. And obviously, the red card kind of ruined the game, and he kept falling over the ball. But I'm sure that was a one-off. He scored in his second debut at the club, so I'm sure he'll be.
I think with Lukaku, it's as his first goal showed, he's just going to get you goals. He's going to get you goals and get you up the pitch, not by his dribbling, because I think that's arguably where, you know, he lacks a bit of. Not ability, because I mean he's a pro footballer and he's fantastic, but that's kind of the area. But hold up play, aerial duels, strength, finishing, all of that, it ticks so many boxes. So if you get him the ball with his back to goal, I would put heavy money on a guarantee that he would be able to turn any defender. He just has that ability, and I think his time at Inter has made him like almost realise, but humbly, how good he is. Because I saw in his interview with Chelsea that, you know, he said that he took some time to kind of reflect, and he just seems like a different person and a different kind of animal now, genuinely. And that's why I put him to, I think he's going to become top scorer, because in that Chelsea team, the amount of times you were thinking, oh my, Pulisic has missed that chance, Ziyech has missed that, Werner's missed that chance. Lukaku, if he has the chances, he's gonna score. That header against Arsenal that Leno somehow managed to save, 9 out of 10 times that goes in. You know, he's probably played against one of the better defences in the league in Liverpool at the weekend, bearing in mind it was just him up there as well, and he still was able to handle himself quite well. So, you know, against your lower kind of teams, I'd expect him to be getting braces and hat-tricks, and then the defensive side of Chelsea is more reliant on how they get their points against the bigger teams, I think, because I think they do probably have the most organised, maybe not on paper best defence, but if I'm backing any team to keep a clean sheet or keep chances at limited, I think it's got to be Chelsea.
Yeah, I think an important thing for Lukaku as well was when he kind of got leaned in. Man United, he was a big guy. He wasn't like, obviously out of shape or anything, but he was big. He was very clearly kind of more like a weightlifter kind of build than a footballer, and he at Inter it just seemed like he got leaner and he became just a different player to play against. I mean, I can't imagine trying to defend against Lukaku, you know, just so strong, quick. I mean, Pablo Mari found out the hard way that it's not easy to defend against this guy, and he's definitely going to cause problems. But it was a big fee, and big fees come at risk, and that moves on to our next one, who who do you think is the riskiest transfer? Now, this isn't necessarily an indictment upon the player. It isn't necessarily this player's terrible. He's a risk. They should never have paid it. It's just saying you've spent some money here, or whatever the criteria is. You may have spent a bit of money here. It might not work out the way you want it to. I mean, we'll have to see. Ollie, we'll start with you. Who do you think is the riskiest transfer
Didn't want
this
you to
window?
come to me
I was going to say, he did not go first.
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 5 names down.
Do you want me? I'll kick off if you want.
Yeah.
So, where's Mizzy? Go, Ollie.
Hopefully you'll take one of mine and make my choice easier.
I mean, look, this is a risk because of the financial outlay that they're putting on in the wage department. I just think it is a bit of it's a weird one for me. I think this is a risk, but not at the same time. And I know it's the most risky, but I couldn't really think of anyone. The only other player that came to mind was Jack Grealish, but I think that's more a risk for a player than the club. Whereas the risky one, United have spent a lot of money here on Cristiano Ronaldo, and I don't know whether.
What?
It's a risk.
1, 2, 3, 4. I had 5 players. He wasn't even on there. You took none of them. Oh, you're a disgrace. You're a disgrace.
Look, Cristiano Ronaldo is set to become the highest paid Premier League player in history, and United can afford that. They can afford that. But my opinion on where this becomes a risk is because you're getting a fantastic player. You're getting the second best player in the world. Towards the end of his career, but I mean, he's still so good, and he's such a winner. And this could turn out to be brilliant. And it's the whole point of risks. No risk, no reward. You could get a reward in a Premier League title, a Champions League, an FA Cup, a trophy for sure, if you have Ronaldo firing on all cylinders. But there's a lot of financial outlay there. And my worry is with this risk, it's more of a case of United haven't strengthened necessarily where they had to strengthen, which was defence and midfield. And because of so much money has gone on Ronaldo,
Can I just say
I
one
struggle.
thing? That's
Go
just,
ahead.
you're just wrong. I just jumped in straight.
No.
You can talk about the fact we haven't signed a position that we necessarily needed, but financially, you're just wrong. There's already been 1 million new followers to our social media account. Well, our stock.
How much money did you get paid
You
for
are
that?
a business.
How much money did you get paid for that?
Listen,
How much
our stock, Manchester United's stock has gone up incredible amounts. One of the biggest increases in the stock market, okay? Manchester United have got over 1 million fans. That is kits. That is shirt sales. Man United are going to make
Why is
so
it about
much
revenue?
money. Man
That's
United
not going to get you 3 points at the weekend.
And shirt sales don't make clubs that much money.
You are buying into the Glazers' bullshit.
Kieran, can I just say there, you're arguing my point for me. I'm not denying it's not the position we need, but I'm arguing the point from Nathan that it's financially wrong. It's not
I
financially
said it was wrong. I said there's a risk.
It's not a risk financially because the money we're going to bring in for bringing someone like Ronaldo is incredible. Same with Pogba. We've got back, basically. We made a profit of Pogba because of the amount of sales and stuff we did all that. Ronaldo is going to absolutely smash that amount of money that we spend on him. Yeah, okay, we're going to spend money on him, but the money we get from him is incredible. Whether or not he performs on that pitch or not, we're going to get a profit off of that player. You literally listen to my words now. We're already making a profit off of him. The stock exchange has gone crazy.
Firstly, Man United Football Club are a football team. They're not Bitcoin. It doesn't matter what their stocks are saying. It doesn't matter how much they're increasing. Secondly, Juventus spent 100 million on Cristiano Ronaldo. How much they made back through shirt sales? 5 million. Shirt sales and stuff like that do not guarantee profit. Juventus did not make a profit on Cristiano Ronaldo.
100 million new followers on social media within an hour.
Ollie, name one person that's been paid for followers. Name one person who gets paid for followers. No one gets paid for followers. Followers aren't going to get you points on a pitch.
You're speaking so naively, man.
Is Ben Foster the best goalkeeper in the league? He's got the most subs.
When you get supporters, you get shirt sales. It's a literally.
Shirt sales don't make clubs profit. You just think that Juventus obviously when Ronaldo joined, Juventus made a lot of followers. They got a lot of followers. They got a lot of things, but they didn't make a profit on Ronaldo because it was only 5 million from shirt sales. A lot of shirt sales go to the company.
Juventus are not Manchester United. They may be more successful in football at the moment, but they are not the household of Manchester United.
Man United won't make a profit.
Paul Pogba joined Man United for £89 million, I think. Now, Man United made a profit off of Paul Pogba because of the sales and the revenues we brought in because of having that type of player at our club. Cristiano Ronaldo, a legend of that club, is going to bring in so much money. Okay, I guarantee you within the next 2 months, you will see that Man United have made incredible shirt sales because of Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, I can argue the point, yes, that he wasn't necessarily a player we needed, because I agree with that. We needed a central midfielder, a CDM, someone to win that ball, to, give protection to our defence. But if you're saying this is a financial risk for Manchester United, you have no clue about finances because this player is going to bring the money back on him by himself. Okay?
He won't.
I'll
tell you this now.
On the pitch and displays on the pitch. I
Honestly,
cannot sit here and believe you're telling me that it's a financial risk. It is not a financial risk.
It is a financial risk.
It's
It is.
not.
He won't bring that back because, again, a lot of the profits you're talking about. Ollie, are you in the boardroom? You are not. So what are you talking about?
It's already been announced.
You know the same as me.
It's already been released.
They've made a profit in a day.
Already going to make.
No, where?
Send
me the link.
BBC
Send me
post.
the link.
What?
Send me the link. Let's look for the link now.
I'm not saying the link now. When people listen, they can search.
Let's see,
Right.
look.
You're so naive. You're so naive.
CR7 profit. Anyway, let me carry on with what I was saying. So, obviously, it's a financial risk for Man United. With signing Ronaldo, they probably won't bring in Haaland. They probably won't bring in a holding midfielder, which are players they need, because a lot of outlay is going on Ronaldo. Regardless of whether Manchester United will make money, no one's saying it will go into the playing budget. Glazers take a lot of money from Manchester United every year, and that is true. That is fact. They also don't put that all in the budget. Football clubs do not put every single bit of money they get into the budget. United don't do it. Liverpool don't do it. Probably Spurs probably don't do it either. A lot of clubs don't. Unfortunately, with bringing in someone like Ronaldo, who is a fantastic player and will certainly give them a lot and make them very good, also run the risk of not strengthening your team enough to win the Premier League title, not bringing in a holding midfielder, not bringing in, someone like Haaland who could be the striker for the next couple of years. I don't think United will get him now. I think he'll end up somewhere else. Again, no risk, no reward. Ronaldo coming in could be a great thing. They might make some money that they can give to Adidas or whoever makes their kits. They might make money to build a new stand. They might make money to put some new training facilities. But in terms of the money that will provide new players and that sort of money, I don't see it. It's a lot of wage outlay. In terms of, these clubs have strict budgets they stick to. They don't go, right, all the money goes into the budget. So I just worry that, I don't care. But I think United, they could have, they've signed the second best player in the world. But in terms of building a team, it's a very Real Madrid type Galactico signing in not like a systematic signing. So we'll see. Look, Ronaldo will make United some money. Whether they make it back, probably not. But they will make money off it. They'll get people to come in. You don't get paid followers, but they'll get some more followers. But they're still going to get done in the counter attack. They probably won't. It all kind of depends on Mason Greenwood's development, I think, in terms of the Haaland thing, because it could wind up you don't even need him because Greenwood's just so good. But it's also, will it stunt some growth of some of the attacking players in the team, because you can't not play it. But so it's a risky one, and that's the whole point. No risk, no reward, as I keep saying. But it is a risky one.
I'll say my last words on that. I completely agree that we should have probably focused our attention towards a different position. I'm not going to argue with that. I've said my piece on the whole financial part of it, and whatever people say, it's true. We're probably going to make a profit on him. You're right. Whether or not that goes back into the team is no question, but there's no doubt we're not going to make a profit off of Cristiano Ronaldo. In terms of the Haaland thing, I still think we could get Haaland. I honestly do. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has been in contact with Haaland since his days coaching him, and he's been in contact with him recently. Now, I don't think Manchester United would have done this signing if they could not make signings, in January or in the next window. Man United will sign players in the next window. They will spend more than £70 million next summer. So there's no doubt that Man United will have the money to sign Haaland. Whether or not they do or not, or whether or not he wants to go to Man United is a different question. Whether or not they'll have the funds to do it, they probably will. In terms of the player development, I completely agree. Greenwood probably needs to be playing as a main striker. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has already said in a press conference that Cristiano Ronaldo's modern-day position is that sort of centre-forward. He plays in the middle, so Greenwood is not going to play there. Is it going to halt his development on the pitch? Yes. Is it going to halt the development of young players coming through United's academy? No. Cristiano Ronaldo is a person that not only will bring stuff on the pitch, but he will bring, just like Ibrahimovic and Cavani, he will develop the youth players and the players already at Man United, whether or not they're young or not. So he's going to help develop the players like Greenwood. If anything, this could be a massive help. Ronaldo is going to be there at Man United for a season, 2 seasons now. I think he signed a 2-year deal. Greenwood is still very young. Yes, okay, he probably does need to be playing there if you have the ideal thing to play in the middle of that pitch. But if you can have him next to Ronaldo to learn off of each other, but then in 2 years' time to him be that leading striker, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But, yeah.
Okay. Back down to earth. Just briefly on that, I, for one, even as a rival fan, can't wait to see Ronaldo in the Premier League again. That's very exciting. I think we were all a bit, not young, but we weren't blissfully aware quite how good he was.
I cried. I cried.
Yeah, I suppose you probably did, but I didn't. It was more of a, oh wow, he is actually that good. I think maybe not risky. I think it's a bit of a reactionary signing, just because City showed interest that United did. I think if City didn't show interest, I don't know if we'd be having this conversation right now. But I mean, who knows? I almost don't want to move on because I don't think we're going to have quite the same level of debate about my risky signing. So my player, I kept it quiet while the debate was going on. But Nathan, I've actually agreed. No, I'm joking. We're not doing that again. This might be a bit more of a agreeable risky signing. So for me, even though Arsenal some could say, have had a decent recruitment window, some of the signings have been a bit iffy. And I've gone for one of them. The one that looked like it was happening, then broke down, then accelerated to like another level. So I've gone for Aaron Ramsdale. I just think that, to be fair to him, at Bournemouth, he looked good. I think he was the under-21s keeper at the time. He was having some good performances and he was making a lot of saves because obviously that was the year Bournemouth went down. And I thought, yeah, fair enough. I think he deserves a move to a Premier League club. When Sheffield United signed him after losing Dean Henderson back to Man United, you're thinking it's a great signing, but the cracks just sort of started to show last season, and there was a few moments where his control and leadership in the box went missing. His shot stopping kind of got worse. His decision making, his handling was all a bit kind of 50-50. And so you think, go back in the Championship, kind of recoup yourself and with Sheffield United and go from there. But now he's at a club where, the demands are probably quite bigger, especially when I don't imagine Ramsdale's looking to be second choice either. You've got Bernd Leno there as well, who's also a very good keeper. So not only is it a risk because it throws into what might happen to Leno now, who I think is probably better than Ramsdale, it also kind of doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of financially and the structure of his wages and the fee paid. And, you look at the three keepers, the last three that have played for Arsenal, the best one's Aston Villa. Emi Martinez, I think that selling him was ludicrous. He clearly wanted first team football and therefore I'd have made him the number one. I just think it's a risk paying that level of money for someone who's probably either going to sit on the bench or force another keeper to sit on the bench who's good enough to be in the first team, when there's many, many places you could have spent that money more wisely. It could pay off. He could, don the gloves as the number one and become very good. But just judging by last season, I just don't think it's a very good signing. And it probably is a bit of a risk for them.
From Man United and Ronaldo, sorry, Nathan, saying that I was saying how that was going to make a profit. I don't think this one's going to make a profit at all.
That sounds booming.
In terms of Leno, I don't rate him. I think he's too, unreliable. I mean, we're talking about Ramsdale here as well, so maybe this can be voicing for both of these players. But I think Leno, you never know what he's going to do. One minute he might be really good, the next minute he could do something absolutely crazy and be at fault for it. So I don't think he's a good enough goalie to be Arsenal's number one, or actually the bottom of the league. He probably is, to be honest. He probably shouldn't be good enough for it. But in terms of Ramsdale, I think this is why risky is the best term instead of we haven't done a bad signing. Risky really does fit this because I honestly do think Ramsdale's got the potential to be a really, really good goalkeeper. I mean, he showed it at Bournemouth, he showed it at glimpses at Sheffield United. He was in a very bad Sheffield United team in that, in the relegation season that he was there. And now he's gone to a very bad Arsenal team, so probably not the best move for him. But I think it is a risky one in terms of will it. It was a lot of money. The outlay was a lot for a player that has had 2 relegations, similar to what I said about Kabak. To be honest with you don't really want to sign a player with that sort of reputation. But I honestly do think if it goes right, it could be a great signing for Arsenal. But that's the risk. No risk, no reward, like Nathan was saying earlier. So risky does, it does hit this on the head perfectly.
I think it sums up a lot of Arsenal's business this season. It's kind of been that sort of, you probably could have spent that a bit better, but it's not bad. Kind of that's how I felt about a lot of them. Ben White, 50 million. I mean, you could have spent that money better, but Ben White could turn out and has all the potential to be one of the best centre-backs in England. Aaron Ramsdale also has the potential to be England's number one in the future. I mean, say we saw at Bournemouth, we saw glimpses at Sheffield United. I mean, he was fantastic in his early career out on loan. So, I mean, there's a player there and there's a goalkeeper there. Seemingly, by looks like he's a good character, someone that seems to be willing to learn and it hasn't got like a big ego or anything attached to him. So it'll be interesting to see how he develops. But yeah, I think, again, it's risky because Arsenal probably could have spent that money better on a position they need more. I mean, Leno's not the best keeper in the world. He's better than what Arsenal have at centre-back and what Arsenal have at left. Well, actually have a very good left-back, what Arsenal have at right-back and what Arsenal have in midfield. So there's areas where Arsenal probably should have spent that money. In the same way, probably could have done better with their finances. They probably shouldn't have started the window saying, we've got lots of money to spend, because that means every club's going to look at them and go, right, okay, well, spend it. So they kind of screwed themselves back when it summed up Arsenal in recent years.
Do you think we would be scrutinising this transfer as heavily if they hadn't let someone of the quality of Martinez leave for so cheap, the season before? Because, I mean, I think most of the people are just getting annoyed at the fact saying, we've let a goalkeeper go for what was it, like £10 million, £8 million, something like that?
It wasn't a lot, yeah.
Yeah, it was very cheap. Someone of that quality, who probably is, one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League at the moment, to then go and spend triple that on a player that has had 2 relegations and hasn't so far lived up to the potential that people have labelled him. So I think if you took Martinez out of it, I think the fans would probably be a lot happier. But
it was 20 million. So it's still a decent amount. 20 million was how much Villa paid, but for
is that with add-ons?
That was the fee. 20 million.
I mean, that even 20 million, that they'll not maybe get it back in a financial way, but they'll get it back in terms of the performances and where they're going to finish in the league. Having a goalkeeper like Martinez, will put them in the positions to earn a lot of prize money, a lot of TV money. So, I mean, that proved to be a great sign. And yeah, of course we wouldn't be having this conversation if Martinez was still there, because they'd have a very good number one. But I mean, in sort of typical Arsenal, they've had a bit of a stinker and ended up with someone not as good as their number one goalkeeper.
They've got like 2 number 1.5s. Is how I would describe them. They're better than being number 2s, but I don't really look at either of them as key pure number 1s. I think both of them can be, absolutely. Leno, I think early Arsenal career was very, very good. But like Ollie said, a good way of putting it, sometimes you don't necessarily know what you're going to get with Leno. So I think there's 2 good keepers there. And actually the arrival of Ramsdale, he could then enjoy the competition with Leno, and that could raise Leno's ability. So, I mean, we could be looking at it and, Arsenal might have had a bad season, but they might win the Golden Glove. You never know.
Not with that defence.
maybe with... Oh, wait, Golden Glove, yeah, no, that's clean sheets, isn't it? Yeah, no, scratch that. I was going to say save.
Hey, yeah, with that defence, they could win the one for saves.
Anyway, I'll go on to my one. Probably someone that you're going to be a bit surprised about, maybe. Because it's not a risk. It is a risk. I just want to say it is a risk because it's a risky player, but it's not a risk in terms of the talent that this player has. It's not like necessarily like, Ramsdale, that it's a bit, still not lived up to it. This player was a very good centre-back at his previous club, but he's now moved for, I think, a £16 million fee. For this club is one of their highest at their club, I think, and it's a player that I don't think is going to be happy just to sit on the bench. Yeah, okay, he's probably got a good 6 months or so, 8 months in the first team football. But after that, where does he stand? Mine's Vestergaard to Leicester. He's a player that he's done very well at Southampton. I think Tottenham were linked with him, and I thought that would have been a very Spurs sort of transfer. But he's a player that I think is a very good centre-back. Don't look annoyed. You
not supposed to. Huh?
I think.
You want to go again, do you?
I think he's a very good centre back. But for Leicester to fork out money, they normally spend it very wisely. And for me, they normally spend it on something that's going to impact their first team for a long time to come. £60 million for Leicester for a player that next season probably won't start that many games because Soyuncu's not going anywhere, and then Fofana's going to come back in. I mean, I think it's just a lot of money to come out. And for Vestergaard, I think it's more risky on his part than the club, really, because he's not going to want to sit on the bench. And I can't see them just letting their £16 million transfer go next summer. So I think it's a shock one. I know you're probably going to be like, why have I said this? But I think for him, it's risky for his career. And I think for Leicester, you know, I think £16 million, they have Johnny Evans there. I think they probably could have bought for a youth player or got a loanee signing in. I think that money just could have been spent better elsewhere.
I mean, Leicester have had... Yeah, sorry, Kieran.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, Leicester's depth defensively probably isn't the best. I think a lot of last season, they liked playing a back five. They can't do that currently because they don't have enough fit centre-backs. So I think the arrival of Vestergaard is massive. Fofana, you know, no disrespect, it's not like it's a minor knee injury. He's broken his leg. You know, you're looking at a long time out on the sidelines. Johnny Evans, isn't getting any younger. Soyuncu, more recently, with, you know, someone in Amati who's kind of a centre mid converted centre back, he hasn't looked as strong, I'd say. So I think Vestergaard brings a certain level of calmness, confidence. You know, he's 29 years old. He's very versatile as well. He likes to bring the ball out from the back. He can do that kind of role. I just think for £60 million, it's a pretty good signing, you know, for that kind of money for a centre-back who's not necessarily going to go right into the first team, but he's going to be there. He's going to be reliable. And, you know, I think people kind of forget that, you know, sometimes you need squad depth. And, you know, he's going to be that first player to call on if whoever the partnership going forward is, if they do decide to go with that back three again. You know, Johnny Evans, I don't necessarily probably will sign another contract at Leicester. I'm not sure how long he's got left, but he struggled with injuries recently. So if they do revert to that back five, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, down the line we do see Vestergaard on the left of that, with Soyuncu and Fofana kind of next to him. But I mean, I think it's a great signing. Yeah,
you said about the money there. I just want to say, if you're looking at a team like Man United or Chelsea or Liverpool or Spurs or anyone like that, £16 million for a centre-back is not a big outlay at all for the signings they make. But for Leicester, £16 million, you look at their transfers, they don't spend a big amount of money on each player. £16 million for Leicester is a big spend for them. Most of their players are around the £20 million mark. So I'm just saying, for me, there was no real interest in getting a centre-back at Leicester until they had that long-term injury. And obviously, you're going to go into the market and do something. But for me, the risk is mostly 80% on Vestergaard's part. He wasn't in their plans because he wasn't going to be bought up until the injury. Yeah, okay, he's probably out for 8 months. But come next season, if they do a centre-back pairing of two, is Vestergaard going to be in that starting lineup? I don't see it. This is a risk on his career. He's chose to go to Leicester, and the next season he could be left in the shadows. So for me, yeah, okay, you know, it's a good signing for them at the moment, but £60 million signing could be a bench player for his career. I think it's a risk. I think he's a great player, but I think it's a risk.
I don't think it. I think you're kind of right, and kind of, you know, it's kind of that 50-50 on it, really. It is definitely a risk for Vestergaard. He was very comfortable at Southampton, probably could have got a move. I think he didn't have long left on his deal, hence why it's 16 million, not like 30 or. But he could have got a move to maybe a foreign club and with a bit more sort of thing, a bit more like game time and that Europa League, Champions League guarantee, because he's a good defender. But I don't know, it's 16 million for Leicester isn't a lot anymore, considering you're dealing with a team that are now regularly in Europe. You know, they're regularly challenging for the top four. They probably should have finished top four 2 years in a row. They bottled it each time. And that probably comes down to a bit of lack of depth. And while, yeah, it is a risk, I think there are riskier ones. I think Romero for Tottenham is a bit of a risk in terms of the outlay for him. I mean, obviously, you have to give players time to adjust, but in terms of first impressions, he's not made necessarily a good one. And there's Ben White, again, as I said, that kind of fits that more. But, you know, I think a lot of transfers are risks for the players because they're going somewhere unknown. Grealish, I kind of feel in a similar way. Obviously, Grealish is very, very good. But, you know, if you have a bad couple of games in that Man City team, you're on the bench and you're working for your way back in that team. And I think it could be the same with Vestergaard. He's good enough to play. And if, you know, Soyuncu carries on the way he is, you know, I mean, I don't know whether he'll still be first team because he's been absolutely woeful in the past week or so. So, you know, as long as Soyuncu recovers to his form, and I think, to be fair to Vestergaard, Leicester had some bad luck. He came in when Leicester needed a centre-back and he got injured almost straight away. So, you know, who knows? I think Vestergaard could be a good signing for Leicester, and especially considering they play Europe now. And, you know, them Thursday nights, they're going to need players and they're going to need to put if they maybe their best way of qualifying for the Champions League is through the Europa League and winning in that. So it could turn out to be a great, again, it's a risk, isn't it? It could turn out to be a great sign. It could turn out to be not so good a sign.
Yeah, it could be a good sign, but it's a risk in some parts of it. So yeah,
I think you were right, Ollie, by saying it's maybe more of a risk for the player than the club necessarily. I think if Vestergaard isn't your first choice option there, he's a great depth choice to have as well. And like Nathan mentioned, with the Thursday, Sunday schedule that Leicester are likely to have, because I'd imagine they'll probably get out of their group. It's going to be pretty tough on what is, a relatively medium-sized squad. It's just defensively, those injuries, as Nathan would know, at the back can really do you some harm. So I think I'd hope that, Vestergaard, I think the good thing about Vestergaard is you don't need to worry about the kind of adapt time as such. Some players do struggle to adapt to the living here and the league, but for Vestergaard, it's just kind of a move up north. He's been in the Premier League for years now, and that's maybe the risk you don't want to take by bringing in a younger player who's maybe got some sort of potential and certain amount of years left on his deal, so you're looking at more money. But when a player who's very good in his position, has Premier League experience at like a very good level, for £16 million, I think you can't go wrong with it.
Definitely, and it's been a decent window for Leicester, been a good window for Leicester. But who has had the best window in the Premier League? I'll take the floor with this one. I'm not sure if many can argue. I mean, as we've spoken already about how they probably missed out on one position they really needed. But Manchester United, for me, have had probably the best window in the Premier League this summer. They've addressed some positions that they needed, and they've really added quality to those positions. I do have a second place one, but I'll let that, just in case that gets mentioned, I'll leave it till the end for that. But I just can't, they've brought in such quality, and I think United, obviously, we spoke about Ronaldo, and if, let's say, Ollie's right and they produce a big budget for next season, United could be close to building sort of like a dynasty team, once they strengthen those positions that really need strengthening. The team that could definitely, it should be up there now, but a team that could really set the tone for the Premier League. And questions still remain over the manager and whether he can bring that squad to what they deserve, or what they should have, not deserve. They have to earn it on the pitch. But I think United have had the best window this time. Yeah,
as a Man United fan, it's been a great window. Obviously, there's still certain positions that it would have been nice to get. I mean, when this comes out, it'll all be done and dusted. But for now, anything could happen in the last couple of hours. But I mean, unlikely with the new Brexit rules. Foreign players coming in normally take around 36 hours to get done at the moment, so it's unlikely that any players like that will come in. But Manchester United, what a window! Cristiano Ronaldo returning, Sancho, Varane. These are all quality, world-class players. Yes. And what?
Tom Heaton as well. Come on.
Sorry, Tom Heaton and Tom Heaton. Actually, I'm a big fan of Tom Heaton.
He's a good player to have around, I reckon.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Sancho's not had the best of start, hasn't really got going yet, but it means he's had 2 sub appearances and 1 start. So I mean, you can't judge him too quickly. Varane, you saw what the quality he had, and Cristiano Ronaldo. Well, he's Cristiano Ronaldo, so there's no doubt that he will probably do well. But yeah, as a Manchester United fan, it's been a really fun window, a good window, and a surprising window as well, to be honest, to actually get deals kind of wrapped up fairly quickly. And the Cristiano Ronaldo one kind of speaks for us.
Sancho won. Yeah.
You what? Yeah. But in this window, it was done pretty quickly. Yeah, okay, we had the back work, all the bricks in place, but like the Ronaldo one done very quickly. But I just want to say, on the Ronaldo one, football fans, we are known for being fickle, all right? We're very naive, and we're very, our head switches one place to the other. We cannot forget this. Whether or not this is true or not, if it is true and Ronaldo was seriously considering going to Man City, that is still a massive negative for me. If he even considered it for a minute, that still makes me, a bit annoyed at him. So I just want to say, Ronaldo, if you're listening to our podcast, amazing.
I'm sure he's upset.
I love you. Why did you consider Man City? But yeah, no, I'm not going to argue with that.
The argument earlier, and he's just carrying on watching since.
Yeah. I mean, I'll get onto my team in a minute after Kieran's, as I did say, but mine is not Manchester United. But yeah, they've had a great window.
Yeah, Manchester United had a good window. If you signed a DM, it'd be a great window. But I am still unsure. I still don't know. I've got 3 teams here.
Ollie, do you want to give me
Do you mind?
Yeah, do you want to do
you have a team.
Mine's a shocking one, and their transfer window probably is done and dusted now, but they could still bring in a centre-back, which would make it an insane window. And mine's Chelsea. I've said this for a reason more so than Lukaku. Lukaku, has been brought in, and like we've said, he's the number one signing, so that's going to have a massive impact on me saying Chelsea for the number one in terms of the team. They haven't really made any other signings, to be honest, for the first team, apart from Lukaku, but Lukaku is an amazing sign that could bring them the title and maybe the Champions League, back-to-back, which would be amazing for them. My other reason is the buyback clauses in the players they have sold. So smart business. Abraham going out, obviously the right back or whatever at Southampton, they've sold players. They've made a lot of money. I think they've made nearly £100 million in departures this transfer window, all with buyback clauses in, which means they could sign these future world-class players on a very cheap side of it. So for me, I thought could quite easily look at Man United, could quite easily look at, other teams. I'm not going to name them in case, the people say, but we've said obviously about certain teams supplying a lot of players and all being good ones. But for me, it's the thought and the initiative that Chelsea have taken in this window. They've signed players that they need to sign. Obviously, they could still sign Koundé. Probably won't, because it doesn't look like they want to pay the release clause. But Lukaku up front probably takes that team to title-winning material, or definitely takes it title-winning material. And for me, they have to be hands-on favourites, even though it's been, 3 games in. But for me, it's also the buyback clause and the intelligence that board's done. That is probably one of the most, smartest recruitment team in the Premier League and in the world with what they're doing at the moment, and fair play to them. They've got a scary team, and like I've said, that buyback clause is just, I can't repeat it, that buyback clause's idea is just incredible.
I mean, Chelsea spend a lot of money on their academy. They break rules sometimes. They broke some rules to get some players into that academy, but they've done a very good job, and they're unique to a lot of teams. They make a lot of their money from this stockpiling of players and letting them go. Obviously, you look at who plays for Chelsea every year, and you get the fantastic players, Livramento, and all these players. Then some of the players that still play for Chelsea. I mean, Danny Drinkwater's gone out on loan to Reading today. Matt Miazga's still there, 25 years old. Lewis Baker's still contracted to that club. So it's just crazy, some of the players that Chelsea have in their team that just should have no business being in that team. But I mean, they've had a great window, and albeit not a huge amount of signings, just good signings and a lot of future investments made in players. And I mean, again, when you have an academy system like that and you can't guarantee players games, I mean, why not let them go out, get games? It's almost like a loan deal in a sense, because they can bring them back. I don't know if these clauses expire, but they can bring these players back. So it's almost like they've just sent Guay and Livramento out on loan.
It's pretty smart, isn't it? I think you mentioned the younger players as well, but the one for Tammy Abraham as well is there, just in case, because we've had some De Bruyne's, some Pogba's where they've kind of struggled at first in the Premier League, gone abroad, come back for ridiculous amounts. But you've got the guarantee that if Tammy Abraham turns into prime Ronaldo, which at the moment he's given it a fair old go, you can bring him back. You can have the first kind of viewing at it, and it's so smart. And to be fair, I don't want to say this, but Ollie has thought about this topic very smart as well, because Chelsea didn't even go through my head, because I was so focused on incomings. I didn't even think about, who they've got rid of. And based on incomings, because I kind of, that's all I've had to think about. Mentioned them a couple of times already in this, like the second half of this podcast. I've gone for Leicester. Again, such smart recruitment. Patson Daka, one of, if Haaland wasn't knocking about in, the kind of around Eastern European leagues, Patson Daka will be the one you're looking at. And how much Leicester have got him for? I think it was about 23 million. He's just ridiculous. Boubakary Soumaré as well is a fantastic signing. Bertrand, Vestergaard, both come in with Premier League experience to kind of solidify the depth of that defence as well. Rodgers has been so smart with the recruitment he's done. And now with Leicester, obviously playing on Thursday nights and Sundays, it's going to need, that squad's going to get tested massively. And with Ademola Lookman coming in as well, it looks like, again, maybe not someone who's going to set the world alight, but, I'd imagine he would get goals against Rapid Vienna, or whoever Leicester have in their Europa League group. He's a perfect player for that sort of of level if you don't want to necessarily, if you want to rest first team players but not rely on, you know, a 19-year-old academy player who's maybe not had loads of first team minutes. I think in terms of that outlay, it's just perfect. And yet again, Leicester just show that they seriously mean business. And, you know, I've seen a lot of comparisons that, you know, some teams are playing a bit more of a career mode like Arsenal and possibly Man United, whereas Leicester, they're on Football Manager. You know, they're looking at potential, kind of the same, a little bit similar with Spurs in terms of who they brought in. That was another team who I had down. Slightly biased, of course, but I do look at it and think the recruitment made it is quite smart. Galini, you know, I think Lloris is probably going to see out his contract and that might be it, you know. Romero to hopefully, eventually, have that Diaz Van Dijk effect on the defence. I mean, if they need it, because at the moment, Brian Heel and Pape Matar Sarr as well, both ones for the future. So I think on that front, it's just such smart recruitment from Spurs but slightly more from Leicester, because they have brought in maybe players who I'd heard of, Daka and Soumare, whereas Brian Heel and Pape Matar Sarr, I can't say I'd heard of them. So the fact that, you know, they've managed to get those exciting young players on the cheap is pretty remarkable, and it just shows that, you know, Leicester seriously mean business.
I mean, you slightly went on to a tangent there about Spurs, but I mean, another team that I thought would be said was Aston Villa. But look, amongst all of these signings, there are certain players that, you know, probably got overlooked and a bit underrated. So if we quickly just go around and say our underrated players, just in the final few minutes of this podcast, I'll say mine now. This player was on both my underrated and my risky list. He's a player which I don't think the deal's 100% gone through yet, but I think it most definitely will. So if it isn't, do scratch this from listening. It's Daniel James to Leeds. I was going to say a player, but I think Nathan might say it, so I've gone with this one just because, you know, it's very current. I think he fits the tactic and the setup of Leeds perfectly. That pace, blistering pace going forward. Underrated and risky. Risky because, you know, he hasn't had the best of times at Manchester United. 6 goals, I think, in 70 odd appearances. Not the best return for, you know, an attacking winger. But someone that I think could really go under the radar. And, you know, £30 million is a record signing for that team. But, I mean, a lot of people, I think, are looking on it quite negatively. But the way Leeds play, it's a match in heaven, really. So, yeah, so Daniel James is my underrated. If we quickly go around, running out of time.
Yeah.
Do you want
to go, Kieran?
Well, I can go because I've already mentioned him. Boubakary Soumare, quite simply, perfect kind of depth level to Tielemans and Ndidi. That partnership's inseparable, it seems. But I mean, if you're going to have anyone come on and see out a game or start from the first whistle of someone slightly injured, saw him come on in the Community Shield final. He was magnificent. Manipulates the ball wonderfully. Great height, great strength on him. Great yards of pace as well. Just more great signings from Leicester. And I think it has gone slightly under the radar because he hasn't really played. But I expect him to, because as good as Ndidi and Tielemans are, they're not going to play 50, 60 games a season.
Yeah, no, both all good shouts. Dan James fit Leeds system very well, and Soumare, great player. For me, I've got a few here. Mark Guay for Crystal Palace. I mean, that's a great sign. We spoke about the buyback clause. There's a reason why he's there, because he's very good, was very impressive for Swansea last year, and should help Palace, especially looking to play a more free-flowing style as compared to under Roy Hodgson. One that went through today, Cucurella, that signed for Brighton. I think it's a great signing. A young player who plenty of potential, came through at Barca, I believe, was at Getafe, had a good season there. Getafe kind of perennial overachievers in the Spanish league. So he's had a great season there. I think he was involved in the under-21 Euros. Spain, could be wrong. Maybe the Olympics, I'm not sure which one, but great player and will fit Brighton as well. It's all about fitting the system you're coming into, and Brighton like to have that left wing back that's more attacking in comparison to someone like Webster or Byrne that holds kind of a right wing back. So yeah, he's going to be a great sign. And the other one was Romain Perraud for, I don't know if I said that right, but Romain Perraud for Southampton, the new left back there. He's impressed early on, had a good game against Manchester United, was very highly touted in the French league. I saw his name a couple of times come up as like a sort of a cheap player that a team could get for left back if they needed one. And I mean, he could be a really good bit of business at Southampton, and another player that they kind of not bring through, but another player they sign, develop, and then sell for big money. Another one that I'm not sure is actually going through, and it's not an under the radar player, but one that could be quite important, Renato Sanchez to Wolves could be a really good signing that Wolves could make there, and someone that was linked with all the big clubs kind of after the Euros and after the great season he had at Lille. Ending up at Wolves, it's kind of a very Wolves signing, Portuguese player that probably shouldn't be playing for them, but is, and I think he'll have a great impact. Certainly, be a lot better than when he was at Swansea.
I just want to say his player because I honestly thought Nathan was going to say him, especially because he actually saw him. You saw him live the other day. Damari Gray was the other player. I was going to say, what was it, like under £2 million, and he's came in and he's probably been the best player, or one of the best players for Everton this season. So very, very cheap, and I think they've already made their return on him, to be honest. 2 goals or whatever and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was going to say just quickly Everton on the best window thing, because I mean they've spent last season, they had a good window, but they underachieved massively in the league. But a lot of seasons they've spent 100-odd million and they've not brought in many actual great players. They changed that last season, and this season they've been forced because of FFP to not been able to spend that much. And although it's quite funny to see a team that's pushing for, they believe they should probably be a bit bigger than they are, getting players like Townsend and Gray, they fit Rafa Benitez's system perfectly, and they look very good. Obviously, I saw them play on Saturday, and they looked very just compact and good. They look good and tough to beat. I think a lot of teams are going to struggle to beat Everton this year, and that's a compliment to them and their recruitment team, who have previously struggled in terms of bringing in good players. And that wraps up the 1-2 Football podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Check us out on social media at either 1-2 Football or 1-2 Football UK. And also take a look at 1-2football.com for all the late and written pieces from our growing list of contributors from around the world. We're also now on, I believe we're on Amazon Music and Audible now.
And TikTok, if you want to see some of
our... And TikTok, of course, on TikTok. We're going viral on TikTok. We're going to be the next big influencers on there for sure. But make sure you check us out on there, 1-2 Football UK, I believe it is the app. And check us out on all the social media platforms as well. See you next week.